Итак, меня прервал пропажа света. Вопрос, где у меня сохранка? На отдыхе. Но время скипать немного текста. Ever since World War II, I've been watching every person, every ideal carried out about wither and disappear. That's the source of my pain. That's the reason I am what I am. The source of your pain, the thing that defines you, people have been mean to you. Fuck off. People in the third world countries keep their heads high while suffering from every sort of horror, but you have completely mental breakdown every time you remember you have mommy issues. Wow, classy. Oh, don't act like you have a high ground here. He obviously sadist. All I'm just saying, everybody has different framework, a different lens to view from their suffering, though. Точку. Еще одну херню допустить. Yes, and there is think about in your humanity she has shown you that that kind of frameworks are not enough. Not even that, as childish romances, pointless power struggles, the dumb gamble, that chasing successful career, mommy and daddy issues, sure, why not? Pain and the pleasure dictates everything. Everyone wants something bigger than this. Everyone wants to escape from this drudgery. They want psychedelia, but permanently wait to stare at God's face even when he does not exist. And you can show them how. Accept the cross you were wearing to your heart, Julia. Accept it. Just accept it. Right, that will enough, Benoit. Father, what are you doing here so early? You two are arguing so loudly I had to come out and check. Even if with all the panic on TV these days, simply walking outside feels like marching to war zone. Yeah, I'm sorry. You should be. I was willing to turn blind eye on your quirks because I believe you have heart in your right place mostly, but I'm very disappointed in the way you approach folks in need. But I was just trying to guide her, to set her on the right path. I know, Benoit, I know. That's the problem. The sacristy is open. Please head there right now. We need to have a long talk. Get me some coffee, if you wish. But, Benoit! I feel sorry for him. I keep hoping he might find some basic empathy through the faith, but all I've done thus far is let him leave you at the end of your tether. Yeah, that's some faith he has. Are you okay with all that bullshit he's spouting? I don't exactly support it, but I don't reject it. It's like attrition and contrition. Perfect and perfect represents, you know. One is focused on relationship with God, the other selfish, focused on personal gain. But both of them work. Yeah, but doesn't this strike you as completely missing the point? A bit, but purely secular takes on. Christ's teaching are nothing new. Pascal's wager is boring example, but have you by chance read Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita? Sure, back in Poland every teen trying to look intellectual online love to repeat that joke about talking cat who swore he'd never pour vodka for a lady because a woman deserved pure alcohol. That one takeaway from that novel, I suppose. I read as a moving description of Christ who is not divine being, stripped of the mystic qualities by open transcendence. Jesus and Satan understood as powerful forces battling within us. Would you have to read it again? It's been so long. Sounds nice though. Julia. 4 hours from now there is going to be a meeting in Elysium, the big finale of Celebrations of Power. Everyone will be there, but we're counting on you not to show up. The good sheriff plans to present the results of the investigation in your stead. It's a simple, crude strategy, might work, but begs to be countered with the outrageous tactic. Take it as you will. The game is about to end. Oh, do not ask me, I'm just a messenger. Who relayed this message to you then? A good friend, a cautious friend, who wouldn't be able to tell you more than even if you forced me to. Well, shit. This is the moment that might decide my rest of my days. What would you do in my place, father? When I was faced with a dilemma that would shape the rest of my life, the world felt too big and scary and impossible to understand, so I simply escaped from the choice into the seminary. Yeah, that's the idea of good advice. I'm gonna have to ask you show it. I would expect nothing less. Don't you regret it? Regret what? You're kind of shady, but you don't seem like a bad guy. Still, you have to accept the people above you and are responsible for some of horrible things. If our superior acts down his own sins, then the face of it probably have the people of this world are irredeemable. Clever but not a real answer. After being a low-level grunt for assholes you find wholly objectionable is not a way to live. Don't know, is it? I have to go. Don't know when we'll see each other again. But when that happens, I probably won't be the same old me. Of course, but before I leave you to scold Benoit, let me say one more thing. Yeah? These are difficult times. Понимаю. My parishioners keep calling me. The things people are going through, they might never admit it, but if this keeps up, it will cause horrifying invisible damage to this nation. A dreadful darkness is killing us all little by little, and like every powerful evil, it manifests itself little by little. And yet, sinful it may be, I confess to being strangely excited. For a moment, we've seen this suffocating normal disappear. This is the time to dream a new world is possible. Walk these empty streets, Julia. Remember how the city feels right now. Basks in its shadows and uncertainties. After the apocalypse comes the great rebirth. The Amini notice await your next report with great curiosity. No way, no. I'm gonna be laughing stock of the entire city if I don't show up to the resolution of my own investigation. How about you demonstrate the modicum of courtesy? Courtesy? Girl, I should put you on a trial. I can guarantee I eventually won't. You messed up Kaiser, the M&M's grease of city, beating him to a pulp like a random goon. He will do everything he can to destroy you from now on. My bet is he'll succeed. Whatever will be. For now, at the very least, I'd like to show the court I'm not a baby fledgling Who can see a task she was given to an end? You're making a huge mistake. How did you even learn this meeting is happening in the first place? Maybe I'm not as trash as an investigator as you thought I was. I never said, but you're showing it. That's not a fair assessment. I wanted to finish the whole mess myself, for your own good. It would be nice of you if you ask what I think next time. Fine, but you will stay quiet. The whole time, no tricks, if it's our bots. But of course. Ah, Miss Savinsky, barely made it up, huh? I wasn't sure if you'd join us tonight. Quadir made his meeting sound like a one-man show. Preparations took me a bit longer than I thought they would. I apologize. Are you by chance planning to surprise us with something? Well, if I was planning something, it wouldn't be a surprise if I told you now, would it? Can I have everyone's attention, please? We're about to begin. Ah, exciting. Is everyone present? Present. And accounted for. My prince? Yes, before we begin, let me welcome an unusual guest to our fold. Name's Torque. I'm the Baron of the Bronx. I was delegated here by my compatriots as an oversight authority. I'm here to observe the results of the investigation. Nothing more, nothing less. Let me stress this one. Last time, this one-time occurrence meant to alleviate the tension in the city. Not a symbol of mutual recognition. Not in the slightest. Of course, we might have... можно мне с вами having considerable differences, but at times they have to be temporarily put aside in order to quell unrest and open paths for constructive, meaningful change. If anyone would like to voice their concerns, the time is now. If not, Quadir, may I? First, let me plainly state that the conclusion I'm going to present is by no means my own achievement. It's the result of tireless investigation concluded by a tackled kindred I won't name here. And of course, Julia Savinsky, whose ceaseless groundwork of the past few nights serves as foundation for the findings that you're about to reveal here. Thank you, Julia. As the sheriff, my role here is mostly representative. I spent the last few days overseeing the celebration in Elysium, making sure no harm would befall anyone present. Luckily, none did. Looks like the prince's decision to move forward with the events was the correct one, and for that we should extend our thanks to Quadir, and let us not overlook our guest to a degree. I managed to convince my key allies that diplomatic actions were the only way forward in this case. No matter how wrong-headed the enemy can be, we still need avenues to negotiate and communicate. Spare us the empty pleasantries and let Quadir move on. I don't have all night for this. Right, I'll be concise. Douglas Ball's Callium remains were found in his office by one of his ghouls first night in the evening. The first kindred to confirm it was another Anarch Baron, Torque, present here. A mystery book author would refer to the circumstances of Kellyan's death as the classic closed-room mystery. The metal door locked up from the inside serves as a sole way in. There is no murder weapon, no usable testimonies, and the evidence was, how do I put, barely circumstantial at best. What was left of us was one hell of a puzzle, and when the answer could be approached using the tried and tested question, Qui bono? We were presented with poorly timed power upheaval, a tense situation where a long-planned celebration was in danger. Suddenly, all of us were faced with an uncertain future. Everybody's benefited, yet anybody did. No one was especially fond of Kellyan, but it's not like anyone seemed particularly keen on removing him from the equation, especially at this time. For a moment, we were sure this was the beginning of an offensive on the part of the Camarilla. We started wondering just how violent our retaliation should be. And as for us, we were momentarily convinced that the Anarchs were plotting to blame us for their own intentional power struggles. A tense situation resolved only thanks to skillful and swift diplomacy. Dare say yet another victory for our talented prince? Julia made sure to examine all the contacts Kellyan might have had in his last days in both sects. Her efforts were tireless, and only rarely misguided. But as exhaustive as they might have been, they only served to model the possibilities, not explain them. Kellyan had a lot of enemies, but their most infuriating kind of enemies can have folks who barely even thought of him anymore. In other words, no one really had a particular interest in getting rid of him, because they could always simply work their way around him. Just before last Christmas, he even witnesses the first, even successful first light raid against his extremely profitable blood trade supply lines. The lone ace up his sleeve, a downright shady ability to perfectly maneuver around the all SI activities gone. Kellyan's decline was apparent to all, and a domino effect made his empire slowly crumble. Up until recently, he'd done an admirable job keeping up the times and getting away with murder, but suddenly all the prison spotlights were on him. Recent stories we heard about him all this depict depressed, downright manic recluse lashing out of everyone, struggling and utterly failing to fit into the new reality found himself in. A closed room, no evidence of struggle, a lack of strong whodunits, the corpse being found in very early evening hours. The conclusion is simple. Kellyan's final death was self-inflicted suicide, to put it in simple terms. I will explain. It was the independent detective who first set me on this theory only last night. There is no suicide note by any kind, of course, but there is a message our recently departed has sent might have not necessarily been a verbal one. A particular thing was in position of the body. It was an arrow pointing at us to notice something. It appears the last thing Kellyan saw in this life was a portrait of Lord Castlereagh on the second Marquesas of Londonderry, which is coincidentally where the Kellyan was born. To most he was a reviled traitor, heartless, suppressor of all dissent, the main threat against each rebellion the Irish have done through successfully in all ways but those that matter to his people. Some call him a tragic figure holding together selfish allies against the common threat, always fighting painfully and unpopular compromises ruined by overwork of sickness, poor public speaking skills. Not hard to see why Douglas Kellyan would empathize. Indeed, especially when you realize the sickness in his blood, his failures, the hatred from his own people and growing paranoia led him to commit a dramatic suicide within his own four walls. Ah, I see. The assumption is instead of stabbing himself to death with a knife or a pen, he decided to let the sun embrace him in the warmth, Castlereagh's face burning into the eyes, a poetic final death. It's not a closure we might have been wanted, but it's probably the best explanation of his motivation that is going to get. Does everyone follow? To me, it's all perfectly understandable, agreeable, and most importantly, it fits the man I've come to understand over the last 2 decades. Agreed, and might I add, there are some irregularities in the handlings of the crime scene, but Anonymous leader findings suggest that Callian's resentful ghouls were to blame. Folks have been real happy to see him dead and all insane, and they went overboard with the celebrations. They've been interrogated, though. Yes, I have received all the resulting intel, and it's done nothing to change my mind. Their depiction of Callian's state of mind only served to support the suicide theory. This is my suggestion that we'll announce these findings to our representative communities first things tomorrow night. Sounds reasonable, and I think that concludes this meeting. I let the keeper of the Elysium to do the honors. Alright, does anyone have anything to add? Any question to ask? Take your time. Miss Julia, any final statements? Actually, I do. No, you don't. But I do. Miss Savinsky, don't make a scene. Believe me, every one of you will really regret if they don't listen to what I have to say. Will we now? Oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, Cody has done a spectacular job of selling you a ready-made-up narrative to package and escort to the outside world, hail to the sheriff and all that. But was that little show really necessary? Did you all really need to hype each other to believe this fairy tale? What are you getting at, little girl? Easy for now, my prince. I'm getting at the fact there is a different, more reasonable theorist and explains everything to a T. That's great for you, sweetheart, but do I really need to stay here and listen to it? The door is right there, but on the off chance you get implicated in something tonight, do you want a chance to defend yourself? And what the chances of me being implicated in anything tonight? I'm pretty sure a lot of kindred in this room are asking themselves the same question right now. In each case, my answer is same. You won't find out unless you stay right where you are. Alright, where was I? Let's assume that the cause of Baron Callian's death was really suicide. Our men say, oh fuck everything, open the window shutters, let the break the dawn takes care of all these problems. And let's assume that he really meant to send a message using that portrait of Lord Castlegreave. Sounds dramatic, but sure, let's go with it. But it's commonly understood that Castlegreave was pushed into taking his own life as a result of conspiracy against him. Needless to say, his biggest fan wouldn't miss that detail. According to historians, the man's last words simply was some powerful people faced him with the choice: deunification or death. Which for an ambitious politician is not a choice at all. So if you're claiming that Callian left us hint, is it troubling him, don't you think? What are you? Enough, we are not dealing in conspiracy theories here. Of course you're not. I mean, it's conspiracy theory backed up by the elites is no longer called such. It's propaganda. Is there a point to this little show you're putting on, Miss Savinsky, other than digging yourself deeper and deeper metaphorical hole? Oh, Mr. Arturo, you will still trying to tell yourself it's me who's in trouble and not you. That's adorable. Listen, you. No, you listen. I don't blame you for peddling propaganda, you're politicians, but what you do, I'm just laughing at you and coming up with shitty, poorly convinced propaganda. So, will someone stop her or... Mr. Edison Payne. You are the architect behind the local Camarille's government speeches and general politician narrative. Be honest, does the shit show really meet your standards? How do I put this? I'm always open to the better pitch. That's all I wanted to hear. I'm asking for now a little patience. That can I spare? Oh, for the gods' sake, Edison, come on, man, that can't possibly... Silence. I said what I said. Now let her talk. Thank you. I'm starting to have fun with this. Это уже мысли. You thought you had all figured out, didn't you? An importably handled murder scene and disposable investigator forced to blindly stumble around, hopelessly chasing loose ends. Your only problem is that tonight I realized I was using the wrong tools all along. Instead of sloth magnifying glass, I only needed a journalist pen. So I sat down tonight and wrote my first article in almost a year. 2 hours of careless writing, creative juices flowing the entire time. Everything miraculously falling into place. And frankly, I think it's my masterpiece. You wanna hear the contents? I know you're all dying to hear the contents, so okay, let's hear the contents. Hailing Starbridge, High Regent of the Chantrier 5 Bourons, violently splitting with her students after he discovered her plans for horrifying experiments with blood magic. Her target, Baron Callion, said students conveniently missing. We are on the exclusive source too, Agathon of the Varrock's personal diary, extra read all about it. Next up, is it true that Tog, the brave Anak Baron prime to the next de facto leader of the sect of the New York City, might have been manipulating his entire faction to secure their position? This appeasement candidate convinced his key allies that the revolution is not an option, at the moment appearing as a reasonable alternative to his bloodthirsty rivals. His ace in the hole was strangely efficient ability to establish diplomatic channels with the Camarilla, which he then used to gain the series of small concessions from the New York City court. Could it be a Prince Bonnet having realized he had a long time the collaborator Baron Callion was just an undesirably asset found in a different, more than 2020 candidate to be leader of the Annex? Extra read all about it. And what about the fact that the Torque, Helen Bonner, Thomas Arturo, Carter Wonderway, and Ainsley Starbridge were all summoned to the Callion's office right before his death? Could it be one so-called boss employed some final desperate measures to stop this downward spiral into irrelevance, and at each point a rush plan to bring out his demise was executed? Could it be that Kaiser, the legendary New York City info broker, striking deals left and right with both Camarilla and the Onyx, wiretapped Callion's office to eavesdrop on those negotiations? Extra read all about it. Could it be that for the entire 21st century, the conflict between New York City, Camarilla, and Onyx was a scam? That was the second acquisition operations in the city were reconciled with the leaders of the two sects? How deep does the road of corruption go? And what about Sophie Langley's disappearance? Attempts on the unlives of the would-be members of the coterie she's attempted to set up alongside her ward last year? Couldn't all these things be connected? And that's the tip of the iceberg. Stay tuned, dear readers. And where, pray tell, can one read all about it tomorrow? 10 different places, among them, of course, a report received by Clan Somba's elders in Chicago. Have you sent it out already? No, and Father Leonard is not the channel I used to reach Chicago, in case you were wondering. I took every possible precaution the way you taught me. Oh, this is ridiculous. She is probably bluffing. Now she knows, Thomas. Eslin, how can you be certain? I just am. Even if I was bluffing, it's all about the optics. You nominate a special investigator, and then the moment she presents her findings, you do what? Subjugate her? Get rid of her? How do you get out of this? I get it. You gave me that role, that little, because you were counting on me remaining the same shitty, useless nobody was ever since I started working with the court. But funny how it works, is it? A week ago, nobody would give a shit about what I have to say. Now I am a grave threat to this entire Illuminati New World Order arrangement you've got going on. I still maintain we can possibly know and prove all the claims you've listed. There is just no way. I know. I checked. First of all, stop bullshitting me. You don't know that for sure. Secondly, if you are right, so what? I've got leverage now. Because of my journalistic past, you gave me a detective title. Wasn't worth rat's ass I'm doing detective work, but ironically, it gave me opportunity to do the best reporting I ever done. And it doesn't even matter if it contains more facts than your official narrative. And you know why? Because the story I offer makes infinitely more sense, morally, emotionally, metaphysically, however you name it. It's a far harder commodity than the low-rent bullshit you peddle. People nowadays buy into barely coherent crap like 5Gs and A-runs. Once they get hold of my perfectly logical story and see you don't really have anything to counter it, you'll be fucked. Hell, the very fact none of you have denied any of my allegations yet speak volumes, doesn't it? Why would anybody listen to you? You made the story of yours sound completely unrespectable, like tabloid garbage. Tabloid would be fine, just mean it would reach more folks. What? What do you want? Now we're talking. A primogen position for Clan Raslombla and a number of privileges befitting the title. We can negotiate the details, but a nice apartment downtown Manhattan is must. Dreaming big, are we? What could you even bring to the fold as primogen? Mr. Payne? Yes. As you can see, we all found ourselves in quite mess here. Indeed, to say the least. If I find us a way out, will you form a professional relationship with me and back the decision to make me a primogen? You really are swinging for the fences, aren't you, child? I'm not suicidal, most of the time at least. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have my sights set sky high. I understand, so how do you propose we solve this little predicament? Easy. We give the masses an even better story than the one just suggested. The one benefits nearly all the parties in this room. Alright then. Thanks to your moxie, you are secured yourself my tentative support. Child, let's hear it. Thank you very much. Okay then. During my investigation, I recovered some interesting intel about a certain individual. Said individual would definitely prefer behind the scenes dealing to remain unknown. For the last 20 years, he has been on and out and off mediator between the different parties in the city. He prides himself on his diplomatic skills. Interestingly enough, one of the main motivation was selling intel about both the Camarilla and the Anarchs to any party that might be interested. Usually that means Kaiser. With a reasonable degree of certainty, he can held responsible for the few recent failed Camarilla operations that weakened Helene Barnard's position. He dreamed of the being a prince, as you see. Recently, he obtained control over an IT company called Double Spiral, which uses to influence New York City. Keen is always further in his agenda and weakened his political enemies. He also operates the most powerful law firm in the city. He uses both of these tools that he can manipulate the mortals to slowly tie in noose around Anarch's leaders and cult members who he wants gone. I'm talking of course about Kate Wonderwear. People, whatever she throws at me, I'm sure I can explain. Are you sure? Because there's hell of a lot to explain. If it's not enough, I'm sure Double Spiral will be happy to deliver us more. So all the things you said the other night were a steaming pile of bullshit, Carter. Edison, we were friends, were a good explanation for every single thing that listed here, I swear my father's grave. Even if there is, I doubt we can justify allowing girls who's little more than a fledgling ripping your credibility to shreds in a matter of seconds. You prove yourself as something infinitely worse than a traitor, Carter. You are a weak traitor. Thomas, Helen, don't you even dare speak to me, you bastard. All I'm saying is where we got ourselves perfect scapegoat to pin everything on. Shady dealings between both sects, all the real conspiracy he would have been involved in, impossibly perfect looks and history. The... Не знаю, что это за слово, accompanying his fall will be enough to keep some community in the city happy for years. You can't do this to me. And why is that? You are incompetent. That's the best you can do, seriously? What a year? Yes, my prince. Seize him. No, I beg you, just no! Can't come with me without a struggle in torpor. As usual, it's 3 strikes with me. Then you're gone. No. Bravo, Miss Savinsky. I haven't seen such adventurous power play in years. Maybe your generation is not all lost after all. Does it mean I can count on your support? Of course, as far as I'm concerned, you are the kind of ruthless primogen the city needs, especially now, when one seat will probably be made vacant. So, what do you say, my prince? My relationship with Edison is a decades-long conflict, and by now I know which hills I'm willing to die on. This is not one of them. Rejoice, girl, you're going to get what you want, as well as deserve. We do have one important condition, though. Of course you do. Mr. Payne, as I am sure you all agree, being primogen is important representative position. It demands nothing but a display of impeccable respect for the masquerade and the traditions. Of course. It's my concern that it wouldn't be proper for us to represent by someone who openly violated the rules of kindred society. But of course, they wouldn't do at all. They'd have to openly renounce their old ways at the very least. Indeed. And I think that's the case of Miss Savinsky, who have lived with a mortal under a single roof for a long time. The best courage of action would be to renounce her and give her up to our sheriff. That kind of gesture would prove the new primogen's dedication to the court beyond any reasonable doubt. Yes, I definitely agree. Her ambition and pride are admirable, but would it be prudent of us to demand a display of humanity as well? Sadistic fucks. My thoughts exactly. Well then, your answer, miss? What's so funny, Miss Savinsky? I agree. Do what you must. Guess that solves our problem then. Let's head out for now. It's been an exhausting evening and dawn is nearing. Yes, let's just do that. Я получил ачивку Good Ending. Ну, это была неплохая история. В целом мне понравилось. В целом реально хорошая история. Плюс я смог вывести это на что-то интересное. Но по сути это все. В прошлый раз я получил много копирайт-клейма за музыку титров. Так что это вампирский маскарад, тени Нью-Йорка. И это была интересная хуйня. В целом есть еще одна игра по миру тьмы, которая у меня есть про вервульфов, но это мы решим уже потом.